Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. It's Monday afternoon. It's 12:30-ish. I'm Paul John Dykes, and I'm joined by Acsom Rabbani and Jerry Taylor here for what is normally a very positive and upbeat Monday afternoon bulletin. And me and the guys have just been talking about how difficult that is becoming because there are issues in front of us, and we're going to have to address them. Acsom, let's start with the game. We'll then look at the issues that we've got with Brendan and the team. And then, of course, what then comes into that are the wider, more deep-rooted issues at Celtic Football Club at the moment. But Acsom, I was sitting at half-time with Kevin McCluskey doing the match day stuff. And we're sitting thinking, that wasn't a bad first half. I didn't see the signs in the first half. But we did mention that we have been a team that can put in a good performance in one half of football and be a completely different team in another half. Generally the second half of a game, and that's exactly what was served up. Were you feeling the same at half time? Were you thinking, right, everything's going to plan here?
I didn't think it was obviously a scintillating performance, but yes, I thought the speed of play was improved at times, and I thought it was generally a decent first half. We restricted Kilmarnock to limited chances. I think they had one set piece, but I generally thought there was a bit more tempo to our play. Still not creating enough chances. Still not really, the output from our wingers is honestly, it's atrocious right now in terms of from both flanks. But I thought generally, at least we were trying to move the ball quicker. I was impressed with Greg Taylor. And at half time, you're like, okay, 1-0, let's really push on. But we've seen this so many times, an absolute collapse from this in the second half. And how many times have we seen that in recent games? It's not even inconsistency from game to game anymore. It's inconsistency within games. Second half, it's always about that 50, 60-minute mark. We just we look tired. We look like we've got fitness issues. The manager makes changes, which are now baffling. He makes us weaker, I think. The last 2 weeks in a row now, I think the changes he's made has almost made us weaker on the park. So the problems were there for all to see around about the 50, 60-minute mark. You could see what was coming, and we just never recovered the whole situation. Then he made the subs, which again I thought just made us worse. And let's be honest, that equaliser was no surprise to anybody in the stadium, anybody watching. We could all see it coming. And the worrying thing is, even your experienced players, your seasoned pros, Callum McGregor was panicking in the last 10 minutes. The manager was incapable of changing it and seeing the problems. And that's for we've been critical of so many things in the last couple of months, but for me it's time to actually look at the manager as well today, and I'm sure we will discuss that in a lot more greater detail, because I've been one of his kind of defenders in the sense that I think we have got one of the poorest squads right now that I can remember in quite a while. But that being said, he's got to take a lot of responsibility for what we're seeing at the moment. And like I said, the draw in the end, we were lucky to probably even get a draw.
There's a couple of things I'm going to pick up on there. You're talking there about the captain, and that really is the manager on the park. We've given him loads of plaudits, and deservedly so. But see, at the weekend there, right, more so than ever before, and I pointed it out after the game, Jerry, I don't know if you noticed, right, 55 minutes on the clock, Jan gets the ball, right, and we'll talk about that as well, because obviously we had to hook Palmer because he had a stinking first half. Jan gets the ball. He's in the centre circle, right? And initially I'm thinking, you take ownership of this. You run at the defence. You carry the ball. Because the minute you carry that ball 20, 30 yards, and he can do it, by the way, then you're going to have Kilmarnock's shape affected. They're going to be obviously on the back foot. He didn't want to do it. And he's looked up. There's two other guys in the centre circle. Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly, best player this season, I would suggest. Maybe not in the last few weeks. And none of they two wanted the ball off him. Eventually it goes to O'Reilly, and O'Reilly looks up with the exact same kind of look on his face, the lack of tempo, the lack of speed, and McGregor doesn't want the ball off O'Reilly. And I remember thinking, wow, that was a strange passage of play, because we are so dynamic. It's as if there's a rhythm where we know where everybody's going, or we should know where everybody's going to be, where the runners are going to be. They looked up and there was nothing on. We're 1-0 up at home against Kilmarnock. And a must-win game, Jerry, that is a concern when your best player and your captain aren't grabbing that situation by the scruff of the neck and taking ownership of it. That concerns me gravely over the weekend and actually over the last few weeks. But just picking up on what Acsom was saying about McGregor, even the guys that you think you can hang your hat on, they're not at the races at the moment.
No. That is really worrying when even your skipper's panicking. He's the one that's there to steady the ship. If you look at all the body language, quite early on in games, they all look scunnered with each other. It started coming in quite early on when we were laughing and joking about Greg Taylor having a go at Liam Scales and other people. But we've not seen that in previous seasons where they're actually nipping at each other and picking at each other. And the difference is that we're not playing as a team. We don't seem... I'm really worried what's happening behind the scenes now, because a lot of them do look like they've down tools. I know Maeda isn't known for his sparkling personality at times, but even I have noticed a massive difference. It's as if he doesn't care. And at 60 minutes in, the worrying thing for me was I kind of accepted it was going to be a draw, because it's been Groundhog Day and we've been battered down by it all season. I'd accepted it, which is a horrible thing to say. Now, I've not accepted that this league's over, and we'll talk about that later on. Far, far from it. But to have to watch that Jekyll and Hyde perform...
Jerry has frozen. When that happens...
Something's got to change.
Jerry.
You know what? Somebody put on Twitter... someone put on Twitter, we need to stop saying that we're waiting for this team to click, because this is it. And that's the worrying thing, because it is. It's like, when do we stop saying this? It's we're waiting for them to gel. We're at the last part of the season here. If they've not gelled now, then that is what's worrying. So yeah, but I will come to some positives later on, I promise you. And by the way, do you remember that time we beat Barcelona with Tony Watt scored? Can we not just discuss that game today?
Well, there's a very good video with Johan Mjallby discussing that very game on the channel. Go and check it out behind the scenes when we were speaking to him at Gracie's. And, you know, when I look at the performance at the weekend, picking up on one of Jerry's points, Acsom, Jungle Lion says every week we keep hearing the same old rubbish. Yeah. And it's true. Because, I mean, I think after the game at Easter Road, you're looking for something. You're trying to grab something from the performance. A rotten performance at Easter Road where we win the game with a last-minute penalty, right? Which was a penalty, there's no doubt about it. And then we're looking at the Ralston moment and we're trying to be as balanced as possible. Not cheerleaders, no happy clappers, but you're looking for moments, because sometimes seasons can hinge on moments like that. And it's not happening. And every week, I see we're running out of games for it to click, as Jerry says. It's not. This is what we've got. And I think if we go back, right, we go back to the 7th of February. We led with the tagline, over to you, Brendan. And I think the mentality that we had at that point was, right, you've got all the guys you've got in the door. You can't do anything else with the squad. It's over to you to be that manager, the highest paid manager in the history of Celtic Football Club, to take that squad of players and go on a run. Now, people outside the bubble might say, what are you moaning about? You know, you're on a 10-game unbeaten run. No. It's much bigger than a 1-1 draw against Aberdeen and a 1-1 draw against Kilmarnock, Acsom, because you're seeing the signs every single week now that lack of cohesion, lack of tempo, but almost a lack of belief in players that you should be able to believe in.
Yeah, this goes back way back, even before February. Like, this has been on the cards right from the very early stages of the season. If I can't think of 3 or 4 good performances consistently we put on the bounce. You look even way back with the St Johnstone at home game. What we've done in stages this season is, like you say, have moments, have odd games where suddenly we'll win the derby fixture, or we'll go on a 2 or 3 winning game run, and then it's back to the norm. There's a drop points waiting, and that's why. Even if you look in the last 3-4 weeks with Rogers' kind of comments, he's talking about outside noise, and last week when he's talking with Neil Lennon, talking about the run that we've been on, 9 games. I almost was right. Okay, I don't mind that, because I felt like it was maybe what he was trying to create within the dressing room and try to create this, narrative that it's okay, we've got this. But we all know, we've all been saying this for months and weeks, that the performances haven't been good, the inconsistencies have been there. This is not a surprise. That's why we could see the trajectory of where we were going. And now you look at the Hibs game, we all thought, we weren't saying it was a turning point, but we thought it could be. It could be a turning point. Could this be something that they can cling on to and try and fix? But I just think the players, the quality of players isn't there. And I also think the manager has run out of ideas of how to get more out of them as well now, because he sounds defeated to me. You look at his reaction even after the match on Saturday. He's putting it on the players, but at the end of the day, he's got a squad that's still better than the majority of the teams we're playing against. Yet he's getting outclassed by likes of McInnes. Aberdeen the other week. Managers are now finding ways to beat us, finding ways to have a go at us, and he's not got the answers how to fix that. I get that the squad is really poor right now. I get that you look at the collection of wingers we've got. I've been speaking about it for ages. Honestly, it's between the four of them that contributed at the weekend, that a lot of them wouldn't get a game for a lot of these other teams. That's how bad they've been. But that being said, you have to try and you look at the likes of McInnes, what he's doing. He's not got any great, brilliant players, but he gets them playing as a team. They're greater than the sum of their parts. Whereas we're the opposite. We've got better players, but we're playing worse than these other teams. And for me, that's where it's now. I'm looking at it. I'm like, I just don't see him turning this around. I don't think we've got the quality of players, and I don't think he's now got the ideas or even the passion to be able to fix this. And that's the worrying thing. We're only 2 points behind. Yet you'll be hard pressed to find many fans who really can see this trajectory turning the other way around.
Yep, I think it is one of the situations where it gets to the point, and loads of people in the comment section have already been talking about Brendan Rodgers, but we've got to look at, right, what are the mitigating circumstances that he had absolutely no control over? And what are the things that are on the gaffer, things that are down to him? And what of those issues can he actually resolve? I mean, you've got a situation, we're talking about wingers there, Jerry, where we're now down to 6 wingers. We had even more, and we started obviously loaning guys out like Tillio and Johnston. We're down to 6 wingers, right? Not one of them is effective at the moment. And you're looking at that and thinking, right, someone has actually suggested here, because we don't have a winger that's working, then maybe we should change the system. And I tend to actually lean towards that way of thinking, because it's almost as if it's a round hole in a square peg at the moment with a lot of these guys. Jerry, now, Lewis Palmer, you can give me the stats, and I know leading into the game at the weekend, he had something like a goal contribution every 93 or 94 minutes, right? Brilliant. Superb stats. Fantastic. Tremendous data. Thank you very much for that. But he was absolutely horrendous in the first half. He was horrendous. I mean, he did nothing positive in the first half, to the point where he was hooked. Let me know in the comment section if there was an injury there, because it just looked like a brutal hooking at half-time by Brendan Rodgers. In the first 10 minutes of the game, I think he lost the ball 5 times. And he gets up as if that's all right, because I'll do something fancy in a minute and everybody will forgive me. I don't think he's got that yet in his makeup to understand that it doesn't work like that, Jerry. It's not just about you do something fancy, you create a goal, you can go home happy. No, absolutely not. His contribution is so inconsistent. It's indisciplined to the point where he's now frustrating the players round about him. And you wonder to yourself, what is he being instructed to do? Because surely what he's doing isn't what Brendan's asked him to do, because it's completely ineffective. And he's been ineffective for a number of games. I think if you're going to stick with the wingers, the only answer for me is you've got to take Maeda, who's not been on the best of form either. You've got to play him on the left-hand side, because at least then, right, you've got one strong side of the park. At the moment, we don't have that. And it begs the question, who do you play on the right? Asim, who's on form at the moment that you play on the right wing?
For me, Maeda's he's offering absolutely nothing at all on that right-hand side. And the thing is, with Rodgers' style, is slow, patient build-up. When we then eventually get the ball to Maeda's not going to take anyone on. So it's pointless having a player like him if you can't utilise the strength that Maeda's got. Which, to be honest, I find him really frustrating to watch recently, because he doesn't, like Jerry's saying, even his body language, he doesn't even try and take anyone on. It's very safe. He just turns back, plays the ball back in field. But that's all, for me, again, that comes down to the system. If we're now playing in a different way that doesn't utilise the pace and the pressing skills that he's got, which are his main attributes, let's be honest, he's not a very creative, technical player, then there's no point in playing him. So that's where I'm like, as a manager, why is he not seeing what a lot of us fans are seeing? That it's if we're going to play slow, patient, build-up football, then that's not you need creative wingers. And then that leads to other problems about the recruitment and all that. But as you've said, when the transfer window's shut, we've got what we've got. So we changed the topics to now, how can we now get the best out of the players that we've got for the remainder of the season? And for all the chat that he's been saying, oh, look, we're on a good run, we've got 9 wins out of 10 and outside noise, all that. Even last week after the St Mirren game, we all came on with a bit more of a positive outlook, because obviously as fans you want to buy into that. It's not about us suddenly changing our mind week to week. We base it on what we've watched at the weekend. Last week at St Mirren, things were improved, and we wanted to jump on that and try and create a more positive atmosphere and really hope that we can go on a winning run. But then we see what we've seen on Saturday, and it's really hard to get on board with that, because it's so inconsistent week to week. We just don't know what we're going to get. The manager's decisions and tactics in game are now confusing me again. Why did we not bring on someone like Iwata? Why did we not bring on someone to shore that game up? Burnaby coming on, obviously it might have been a fitness issue with Taylor, but again, we know that he's a liability. We know that. You look at the back four that finished that game: Ralston, Welsh, Scales, and Burnaby. If you said that at the start of the season, that's going to be your back four in a title-defining game towards the end of the season, we'd have all been like, no chance. Yet this is where we're at, on the back of 2 consecutive Champions League campaigns and all the money that's came with that. That's the back four that we're putting out, and when we're trying to go for a title. It's from top to bottom, the club is a shambles right now, on and off the pitch, from top to bottom. And there's just so many issues, which is why I don't think it's purely on the manager. He's got, like, I do agree now, I've finally kind of coming round to the idea that this is absolutely not good enough, what he's serving up. But there's so many issues even wider than that. And that's where, again, a lot of people in the chat saying he needs to go. Again, that's a chat to be had. There's a discussion to be had on that. You look at likes of Bayern Munich right now. They're thinking of maybe changing the manager at this point in a last gasp attempt to save the season. I just don't know if there's a better alternative right now, though, that with 12 games to go is going to suddenly fix it. But yeah, in the bigger picture, do I think Rodgers is the right man for the job anymore? I'm having serious doubts about that.
Well, this is the thing, because what we do on a Celtic State of Mind is we broadcast every single weekday, we cover every single game. And obviously with the 2 games a week, you are going out 11 times a week in that instance. So what actually happens is you comment on real-time events, and those real-time events are what obviously influence your views and your opinions on what's happening with Celtic. And they change depending on the performance of the team. So anybody who's clinging on to something you said 3 or 4 weeks ago, come on, we've moved on from that. And that is why opinions change. Last week, I was being as positive as possible, not as a cheerleader, but because we were in a situation where going into that Kilmarnock game, you've got to win 2 or 3-0 and move on. We didn't do it. So the absolute mood of that situation has changed. And then you comment on it because it's happened. There's too many people who love to hark back to something you said on the 7th of October last year. And you're thinking, no, because it was right at the time and things have changed and let's move on. And your opinion can change based on the circumstances that play out in front of you. Asim's mentioned, Jerry, that Brendan Rodgers is, that there's a huge amount of this on Brendan Rodgers. And conversations I've been having recently, I pointed out that you just have to look at the form of Kyogo. Some of that's on the player, some of it's on the way that we've actually set up to play. And a lot of that is obviously on Brendan Rodgers. Rio Atati, one of the most effective players that we had last season, although affected this season by injury, when he's played, and let's not forget, when we started the season, he was on the bench. He's not been utilised the way that we could have utilised him. One of the most playmaking figures we've got in the squad, and he's not been utilised properly. The defensive scenario, we still can't defend a cross ball. We still can't defend a set piece. We're in the middle of February. We're coming to the end of February and we still can't do it. Why? This insistence to constantly throw players under a bus. And I'm talking about guys that you might need to call upon now. We've got a defence that looks very, very weak, Jerry, a defence I don't have any belief in. What do you do with it? Because Greg Taylor's back, brilliant. I'm delighted with that. And I'll come back to Asim's point about bringing him off and bringing on Burnaby, who should never be anywhere near the Celtic side at this stage. You've got 2 centre-halves, right, who week on week, Scales divides opinion. He's put in some brilliant performances this season. But really, we can't defend a cross ball. So I'm finding it hard now to defend the central defenders, Jerry. They've got £7.5 million worth of new central defenders still in their wrappers because Brendan's convinced themselves they're not good enough. And then people say, well, he sees them at training every day. All right, well, that's a massive issue then if we brought them in and they're no good enough for this team, because this team's not good enough in terms of defending simple set pieces. And it hasn't been all season. We've got a goalie behind us, Jerry, 75 international caps. He's got experience at Champions League level, international finals, World Cup, European Championship, and we can't defend across. So you need to then start looking at why that is. Where's the dominant centre-half when Carter Vickers isn't there? We can't be in a position where a player gets injured and everything just goes up in the air. We've got to be able to slot somebody else in and continue regardless. So, Jerry, the points that are on the manager, it gets to the point where people start talking about a change of manager. Not because I wanted Brendan Rodgers in charge. I don't think it's a good idea at this stage of the season where we are. Now, people might say, but you were wanting Neil Lennon sacked in the COVID season. Yeah, because we were miles off. There was no way we were turning it round. There is a glimmer of hope that we can. You're going to give us a wee bit of that positive hope, Jerry. There's a glimmer of hope that we can still win this league. I don't think you're going to be relying on a new manager bounce to do that. I really think that would just fracture the whole thing at this stage.
No, Celtic need at least 6 months to find a new manager anyway, so we know that's not going to happen. They're known for speedy reappointments. It's not the time to do it, right? Okay, Brendan Rodgers has to take a lot of the flack because the system isn't working, not with the wingers he's got, like we've spoken about. Knee-jerk reactions just now, so they've gone top. All right, okay, this is football, we're no used to it, but the challenge is on, right? I don't think we need to panic just yet. If things start to keep going south, then we will start to be calling out for the manager. But right now, I don't see where it's going to change anything. We've got to remember that the other side of the city, they've got quite an inexperienced squad, but they are playing as a team right now. But they've now got the pressure of being top. How can they handle that? They're not used to it, while fighting in Europe as well. So they've still got to come undone at times as well. I don't think they're going to go undefeated for the rest of the season. But what we need to do is we need to go undefeated for the rest of the season, I reckon now. We need to win every single game. And hopefully they're going to slip up. And I do believe that when it comes to experience, and this isn't me just coming on the podcast just to slate the other team, but I don't think they're experienced enough to cope with the pressures. We've seen it time and time again with when they've taken the lead, and that's when they actually start to play worse. It's easier when you're chasing, I reckon, because they're a bit of the pressure off, maybe. But when you've taken it, now all the fans are expecting this win. So let's see how they handle it with the pressure. We've not been doing great, but I'm hoping that we just can't get much worse. My worry when it comes to the likes of Palmer, I put in the group chat, I'm sick of him smiling every time he makes a mistake. But it's grinding on me. Like I said, it was ripping my nut, and it's obviously ripping Brendan's now by hooking him at half-time. I hate seeing that in a player, for any team. Even if I'm watching Sunday League, you make a mistake, don't laugh and think, oh, and just flippantly. You want to be raging at that. I like seeing players punching the ground if they make a mistake. And to me, that means he doesn't quite get it. He doesn't quite get that now he's landed at Celtic. It's not all roses, or he's getting a loads more money, he's doing all his TikTok videos and that. And do you know what? He's played his game and that's him being paid. No, it's much, much more than that. Mm-hmm. And if you're smiling after making mistakes in a big game like that, you're not getting it. And how many of them are not getting it? And why are they not getting it? Is Brendan not... He should be fueling them full of passion every game. Is his reserved, nice guy approach just not working? Do they need a spark? Because when they're coming on, they're relying on the energy from maybe the fans the first 20 minutes or so, or the team talk that they've just had, and then it just dies off. That passion, that energy needs to stay for the 90 minutes and beyond. And it's hard, it's a tough watch. I joked about the ripping my knitting, but I was sad to watch him smile. And folk will pick on me for that, thinking, oh, he's just trying to stay positive for the game. But it's all these wee things, and I don't know. Like I said in the group chat, from the minute we brought out that home top, I just feel like it's been a bit of a jinx season. But I'm sticking positive. I think we've got to hit a purple patch, and we've got to keep it. And I still think they're going to fall at a few hurdles. So keep the faith. Hail, hail.
Well, exactly. We're the first thing we can do is start wearing that jersey you're wearing, and then we'll put on there. Yep, absolutely.
Swap the jersey.
Stop the and stop the rot. Absolutely. Now, I'm hearing news here from B that Tony Mowbray our ex-player and manager, has temporarily stepped away as Birmingham City boss as he undergoes medical treatment for an unnamed illness. So all the very best to Moga. I remember as a player, him coming in when Liam Brady was in charge. I was actually talking about it today. I was up at Celtic Park doing a wander around Paradise, which will be on the channel at 6 o'clock tonight. And I bumped into two long-standing Celtic fans, Joe Walker and John Mackay. John was over from Canada. We had a wee chin wag and we captured it on tape, actually. And we were talking about the good and the bad old days. Joe's first game was 1964. Been going to watch Celtic 60 years. I love all that. I could sit and talk to these guys forever. And I was talking about the game. What was that?
You at the game, aye?
I was at the game, aye. Aye, cheers, mate. Thank you. Not that old. And I was talking about that game, the New Year's Day game when Mowbray scored the header. All the very best to Mowbray. He played in a poor Celtic side. He came back as a manager. Didn't quite work out. But I think Celtic fans have got an affection for him for the way that he approached the games. And obviously during his time at Celtic, he lost his wife to cancer, tragically young. And he implemented the huddle, which we do to this day. It's become part of Celtic's folklore. Big Moga was the guy that implemented that in the side. We need a wee bit of that now. We need the huddle. We need that proper coming together. Now, there is the inner sanctum of a football team where there's certain things that happen behind the scenes that need to stay there. And I want to talk about the post-match comments of Brendan Rodgers and Greg Taylor in just a second. Buzz Lop, the centre-backs are our primary issue. We will not win a league with skills in Welsh. It's simply not possible. I think those two players, if we're looking at them as individuals, they've obviously both been on a bit of a journey at Celtic. The first one, Liam Scales, we've been giving him plaudits all season. Stephen Welsh, he's had a tricky one, but the gaffer reckons that he's better than Nawrocki and Lagerbielke, who are either on the bench or not even in the squad. But it's difficult, as I said before, Asim, I find it difficult now to defend the defence because we are not defending properly. I mean, okay, we'll look at Bernabé. We'll look at the fact that he's hoping that he gets shoved. He's hoping for VAR to get him out of jail. Terrible, terrible effort to try and win the ball. But we lost the first ball because the ball came in first and we didn't win the header properly, and it goes out wide, it comes in again. We're not defending properly. So I'm finding it hard now. I'm finding it really difficult to continually defend the centre-backs. What do you do with it? What do you do with it, Asim? Do you try something different? Do you try Nawrocki? I think the centre-backs, I've said this time and time again, always use Maurice Yates as an example. Get the ball to the wingers quicker. And then you can break. We're not doing that fast enough, if you ask me. We're not carrying the ball enough as central defenders. What do you do with it? Do you stick with them? Do you make a change?
Yeah, I think there's problems from both an attacking and defensive sense. I don't know if you've seen there's a thing on Twitter just going around with the clip of where we've got the ball for about a minute, and it's the one where Joe Hart ends up just kicking the ball out of play. And I remember watching it in the stadium at the time, and I'm thinking, what's the plan here? Now, obviously, it is we're trying to draw them out and trying to find spaces. But Kumar and McInnes alluded to it. He said he allowed us possession to the players he wanted to have possession. So they know that our centre-backs are not good at progressing with the ball. They're not very good at passing. So they allow them to have it. And then as soon as it goes to our wider, that's when they're on the press. And then that happened again in the second half. There was an incident where it must have been in the right-back area. For a good 30 seconds, we were just between Ralston and then there's a point where Matt O'Reilly flings a ball halfway across the pitch towards Joe Hart. It was just baffling. We had no plan how to actually come out of a press. So what we've now got is we struggle to break a low block because of our lack of creativity. And now when teams like Kilmarnock come and press us, we struggle to come out of that as well. But so again, that to me comes down to, I think we're missing Carter Vickers a lot because I think he's good at progressing with the ball. I think he's someone that can beat a press with a pass or just when he drives with it. Both Scales and Welsh are really bad at that. And then you've now got, like you say, defensively, the amount of times, anytime a cross ball comes in, you fear, you're worried about it. Nobody covered themselves in glory for their goal. You look at it from Yang giving the ball away up the top and then lazily kind of getting back in. And then there was a crossfield ball over to Ralston, and Ralston's miles away. He's again just allowing the ball to come in. Now, we've all kind of praised Ralston. He comes in at times, does a good job. But I think now what you've got is 4 squad players making up a back line, or 4 players that should be guys that maybe just come in every now and again and can do a job, but now they're making up our full back 4, and that's what you're seeing. a lack of cohesion, a lack of consistency, just general quality. We've all praised Scales all season, but you can see it now that the more games you're watching, he does struggle with cross balls. There's just no chemistry between the back four and goalkeeper. There's panic. There was one where Joe Hart's coming out and punching the ball when there's nobody near him. Again, around about that 60-minute mark, which just led to the anxiety within the stadium. But where's the communication? Where's the trust within the players talking to each other? All of that just seems to be non-existent right now. You've got a back four that, like I said, if we were playing against a St Mirren or Kilmarnock, that's the kind of level I think they would have. Yet they're playing for Celtic, and that's nothing against the guys personally. I think they've all came in and done a good job at different times. But we were talking at the start of the season about how we want to improve and we want to get better in Europe and looking at the Champions League. Yet we've not got enough quality in our back four and in our team in general to be consistently putting a run of 3 or 4 wins on the bounce and domestically. The back fours are worried, like I said, both coming out with the ball and just in defence. How do we fix it? Yeah, we've all said it. We've got 2 guys that we've paid over 8 million for combined, and they both aren't deemed good enough to play. You've got how much was Burnaby? He was about 3.5 as well. So you look, that's about 11 million on a left back and 2 centre backs that are just not good enough or deemed not good enough to play. You've got Kuhn as well, who came on. Now again, you don't want to be too harsh because it's early days, but he doesn't look like he can handle it. He looks like someone who's fearful playing in front of that crowd right now. There was no confidence in his play. We've seen about 4 or 5 different appearances. January was a chance for us to really try and rectify all the problems that we've seen since October, November time. Yet we've not done it. And you look over across the city, they've brought in Diomande, who's scoring a crucial goal for them yesterday. They've brought in Cortez, who'd probably be a starter in our team. They've went out and tried to actually win this title. We've not.
No, you're right. You're spot on. And I think when we get to the board and we talk about how they're going to be viewing this, I think that's partly the issue that we've got. If we're talking about issues that have been created by the gaffer then, Jerry, I think that, when you bring on Burnaby for Taylor 60 minutes in, it looks like it was a predetermined decision. We're going to give you 60 minutes, Greg, get you back up to speed. Right, I get that, because you're trying to get him back to full fitness. Burnaby comes in, the guy's just chaos. He's chaotic as a footballer. You never know what he's going to do. He's got no discipline whatsoever in terms of his positional play. His passing, ball retention is really poor. And obviously he's not strong enough, because the goal epitomised the fact that he's not strong enough. He comes on and our level drops dramatically. Not just the quality of the player, but I think the way that Taylor was playing at that point was he was really playing the inverted role. A lot of his possession was in the midfield area, and that obviously helps that entire area of the park. He comes off, Burnaby doesn't give you the same presence in the midfield, so you're a man down in terms of the midfield area. And then I think Ida, who, by the way, I'm not having a go at the player because I don't think he had a great game, but in terms of the shape, you bring off Ida and you change the shape back to 4-3-3, then you're nullifying Kyogo as well. You're almost losing 2 players. So I think that's on the gaffer. These are changes that the gaffer made, Jerry, and these are changes that I think completely affected our play and the rhythm of our play. We were a different side in the second half than to the first, and I think a big part of that was on the gaffer's changes, Jerry. And people think sometimes that we're not harsh enough on Brendan Rodgers or Callum McGregor. Well, I think at the weekend you can look at both of them and say the Perrys were miles off it at the weekend, Jerry.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what it is with Brendan Rodgers. Anytime a player comes back from an injury, I don't think he doesn't think any player can last over 60 minutes or they'll explode or something like that. I don't know. It just feels like he has to take them off on that 60-minute mark. If we'd bought in a left back in January, because there was a wee hint out there that we might have needed one, Yes. So then maybe we'd have had a better. It's like, who do you blame for that? Is it Brendan Rodgers for bringing on Burnaby because we know how bad he is, or is it the board for not giving him that strength of replacement? Or, I mean, is Scales that bad a left back now? Is Rudy Vata that bad a winger that he can't get in?
By the way, Rudy Vata might get a game on the wing. Old Rudy, I think he's about 60 now, Jerry.
Rocco, I do this.
Let's run with the Rudy. Honestly, he's maybe a better option.
Mate,
that's your one for the week, Jerry.
I think in that game, I actually think I called Rudy Rocco at one point. So, oh well, there's balance there. But is Rocco that bad? I'd take Rudy Araujo. Is he that bad? Like, is the rest of them? Because
He wasn't even on the bench at the weekend.
I know. But the thing is, right, we couldn't. I'm not saying what anyone's seen, what the scouts have seen in him. He doesn't even look like he wants to be there. He looks quite angry when he's on the pitch, as if, why are you passing the ball to me? The body language, he just doesn't look.
I don't even know. I think it just looks like the weight of the shoulder, the weight of the pressures on his shoulders. And Celtic Park, obviously at the weekend and in general, it's a difficult place to play when things aren't going great. But that's the kind of we need players with the mentality that'll embrace that. Now I know we've harked back to it, but see Jota, for example, he would take that. He would take the game by the scruff of the neck, and he would make things happen, even if he's not playing well. And we all remember there were times last season. We don't have players like that right now. You're Aaron Moy, Jota, people like that even if things aren't going well. That's the thing. People talk about, it's a treble-winning squad, and again, I know it's a topic we've discussed, but the squad is vastly different to what was winning those trebles, because even if you look towards the end of last season, the decline was beginning to start showing. As soon as I think it was from as soon as last summer, the transfer recruitment started getting worse. Andrew's second season, it started getting worse. The quality then, we had enough still, obviously, for the large part of last season. We were brilliant. But I think from February onwards, a lot of people seen a decline in our performances as well then. And I think that's just carried on, and we've just not replaced a lot of the quality, experienced players that we've got, to the point where, you're right, Paul John, and both of you said it there. Callum McGregor was, I've never seen Callum McGregor panic like that in the last 10 minutes that I've seen. And is that just because he's off form, or is it also because he's surrounded by players that I'm not cutting him slack. I know a lot of people say, Callum McGregor gets away with it scot-free. Absolutely not. I thought he was really, really poor. But he is surrounded by a quality of player that's just not up to it as well just now. And it's almost like he's having to carry the team himself. He's trying to do everything himself. But still, that being said, that last 10 minutes was symbolic of where we're at. And that stems again to the manager. Why is there such a lack of mentality and belief? How many home games now has that been this season where we're hanging on or we've dropped points? It must be our poorest home since the COVID season, our poorest kind of run of drop points at home. It's the amount of times we've left Celtic Park this season, and you're just like, that was not an enjoyable watch. There's just so many things wrong, and there's so many facets as to why it's all wrong. But what we kind of were clinging on to is, I was hoping that Brendan Rodgers was good enough as a manager that he could see us through the line. That's what I was holding on to. I kept thinking that it's fine. And that's when he's been given the fighting talk the last couple of weeks. As much as we've all known that, okay, it's not been good enough, we still probably thought, right, okay, he's going to be able to see us through. And I think Saturday was a watershed moment for me that I don't think he is. And I know that people might be saying, no, I'm not conceding anything. We're only 2 points behind. From the other side of the city, they seem to think they've won it already, and that might be the saving grace for us. That I think there's a feeling within their camp that it's already done. But we should not be having to rely on them now failing. We should have been doing what we needed to do. We should have been proactive. We were way ahead in the title race back in October, November. For us to now be going to Fir Park next week, possibly 5 points behind, looking for favours, it's honestly self-destruction. And that's what makes this season so frustrating, because we've seen it all coming. We could see where this was headed, and we've done nothing to fix it.
Sometimes when we talk about some of the bigger issues at Celtic, and recruitment inevitably comes into that conversation, some people actually think, why are you concentrating? Why are you focusing on that? Well, let's take the Kuhn example, tiny example. That is part of the issue, right? So say, for example, Nicholas Kuhn doesn't have the mentality to play for this club, right? That's part of the recruitment process that we don't have. Because we've been talking about a recruitment process whereby you can identify players either because the manager knows that they're going to do a job, right? So Ange Postecoglou, I think, was great in that he brought in players he knew had the qualities in the J-League. It was a market we had not been tapping into since Nakamura and Kuki Mizuno. But he was able, because he had worked with some of them, he had seen and worked against some of them, he knew what Aaron Moy could do. So if a manager knows what a player can do, and in the past, Brendan Rodgers did it obviously with Kolo Touré and Sinclair, you know a player, you bring him into the club. That's great. That's phenomenal, because you have worked with him, you've given it your own eye test. But there's another way of doing it, and the recruitment, when we do it the other way, is terrible. The recruitment has been terrible when we do it the other way. The other way is, of course, with a head of recruitment being Mark Lowell, who I think the club might actually offer up as a sacrificial lamb at some point in the next couple of weeks, because the last 4 transfer windows have been abysmal. Now, I'm not slagging an individual player. I'm not slagging Ida. I'm not slagging Kuhn or any of the guys that came before. It's our process. Now, I don't mind the strategy. The strategy of bringing in players at a certain level, a certain price, and making money off some of them. Brilliant. A club like Celtic need that income stream. But the way we're actually implementing it is all wrong. The way that we're executing it is all wrong. Last season under Ange Postecoglou, have a look at the appearances. How many of those guys were brought in transfer window 3 and 4 for Ange? Not many, right? Alistair Johnston probably was the only member of that team that came in that period who was a starter. I always said I was on the fence with, I don't think he's developed at all this season that would change my mind about him. He's not a guy that's going to be pushing Kyogo for a first-team jersey. So not even anymore. I think Johnson's the only guy that came in transfer window 3 and 4 under Ange Postecoglou. So you ask yourself, why was the first and second transfer window so good? Because we've done them differently. We didn't have Mark Lowell at the helm at that stage. Ange Postecoglou, laser-focused. Frank Trimboli, we've mentioned them, CAA based. That was the agency. They used their network. They brought in the players. There was a few of them that didn't come through that process. Uragide, Liam Shaw, deals that had already been lined up. James McCarthy, who knows how that deal came about. It certainly wasn't an Ange deal. But all the other players that were coming in were through that process. Some of them didn't work. Ideguchi didn't work. In the second season, I've got no doubt Kobayashi was one of Ange's identified players. That didn't work. But the way that we are recruiting just now, eventually, once you've lost some of the quality, and let's be honest, we've lost Juranovic, Giacomakis, Moy, Starfelt, and Jota, and you don't replace that quality, there's a chasm of poor players at this club who are not good enough to inherit the jersey of somebody like Jota. I was driving through to Parkhead this morning, right? And I got stuck in traffic, Jerry. Don't ask me about geography. I failed it at school and I'm continuing to fail it. I need a sat-nav to survive. But I was stuck under this bridge, and on the wall in green paint, someone has painted Jota on the wing, and it was right there in my eye line as I'm stuck in traffic. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, could we not just have kept him? I mean, what have we done with the 25 million anyway? We've just absolutely spraffed it, right? So what we've got is we've got a lack of quality in key areas. But I was with Acsom a week or two ago, last week. Brendan, you can still sort this out. And this takes us on to the board, right? So what's the board's view on this, Jerry? Because it's going to be miles and miles apart from what we're talking, right? They will look at this and say, okay, at the end of the season, or at the end of the financial year when the chairman's doing his restatement, and he'll say, all right, Champions League performance, we made more money this year than we did last year. That means that we've done better. So that was a success. A football fan can't see it like that, Jerry. We look at that and go, no, we're not progressing in Europe. We're going backwards. They'll then say, we have invested in the most expensive football manager this club has ever had, and we've given them 11 players and we've spent this amount of money on them. Go and do it. It's the football department's fault. That's going to be their attitude, Jerry, because they're so far removed from the way a football fan thinks. So the only thing I think we've got immediate control over as a football club is the football team, the starting 11, Brendan Rodgers, the football department. We can sort that out. All the other stuff, the failing recruitment, the out-of-touch boardroom, the youth academy that doesn't produce youth footballers, they're all long-term things that we need to come back to. We need to try and focus on what we've got at our disposal. I'm like Acsom, I'm not conceding nothing. I'm conceding nothing. Loads can happen between now. Listen, we could be sitting in here in a fortnight having a different conversation. And if there's one thing I've learned on Acsom is that's exactly how life works, other than the COVID season, which was just doom and gloom every single day. So, Jerry, we're at that point where Brendan Rodgers needs to take some of this on the chin. And if he is the manager for the job, there's no more last chance saloon. It's now or never for him.
Yeah, definitely. You can blame everywhere just now, from board to management to the players. It's not right at every single level here. There's room for improvement, a lot of improvement everywhere. Do you know what I'd love to see? I don't know if I'd love to see it, but it would be intriguing. See Netflix doing one of those documentaries with Celtic and watching their transfer business behind the scenes.
Jerry.
Talk at that on the Comedy Channel, wouldn't it? Honestly, it's like, I think they all sit around a wee table and just type in, like we do in the FIFA search engine, and just type in, I want a player with these stats that maybe plays in this league. Or just like you were saying before, I don't know if you've said it in the show, Paul John, you probably have, about every player that we've signed, we've pretty much played in pre-season in a friendly and the former team.
Last season, yep.
There is absolutely no structure when it sounds like there's no structure when it comes to the recruitment. We're spoiled when it came to when Ange came in. It just seemed that every single player was gold, and you just believed that every transfer was going to hit the ground running. It's a bit sad, Acsom, when you've got the reality's hit when you said that we started losing form under Ange in the February, and it's February now. So basically, we've been rubbish for a year now. You know what I mean?
Happy Valentine's, Jerry.
You're right. We've managed to stay top of the league for the majority of that time. So, we just need. I keep saying it. We need to see this out. Things need to change at board level.
Yeah,
we might see
the issues are right from the issues are right from the very top. You've got an owner who doesn't even turn up to AGMs. You know, he doesn't even care enough to turn up to an AGM. He only gets involved when it's proper, when we proper balls it up, and that's when and even then, what does he do? He'll go through his phone book and find his contact. So you look that's how we got Rodgers the first time, and then we reappointed Lennon. It's not like there's any innovative thought process behind the scenes. You've got a CEO who, let's be honest, for the 2 years that he was out of the picture, how harmonious were things at Celtic when there was between fans and Ange, and everything just seemed like there was a connect. I've never felt as connected in those couple of years since way back in the Martin O'Neill years. That's how good those last couple of years were. And then just by his very presence, that toxicity comes back. You know, we don't know why, or we don't even know what he's doing behind the scenes, but his very presence causes that. And then you've got his son, who's the head of recruitment, who, honestly, we're at the stage we're going to need an absolute rebuild again this summer because of the mismanagement of this squad. The absolute shambolic 2 transfer windows that we've had. I say 2, but it can go back probably further. But these last 2 have been that bad. We've brought in 11 players. None of them are good enough probably to be starting for Celtic. None of them. So we're going to have to start next season probably doing an absolute rebuild again. You've got a manager who, you know, for all we've been saying he's a great manager, he's not shown it. He's absolutely not shown it. The things that we used to think he was really good at, he's not shown any of that this season. In-game management, man management, tacticalness, style of football. The things that we've seen in Brendan's first tenure have not been there. But we've all probably just kind of hoped that things would turn around, but it's not. So the problems are far deeper, and a lot of people have been saying, well, the only way to stop it or to change things would be if we don't buy the season tickets or if we don't buy the merchandise and all that. The season ticket one's difficult. I've been a season ticket holder for 20 years. Would it be easy for me to just suddenly give it up? I go with my dad week in, week out. That's something it's an emotional bond and connection that we've got with the club. So it's easier said than done just to be like, you know what, that's the way we'll hurt them. I put out the weekend about if we miss out on this title, that we're going to miss out on the 60 million and all the finances that come with it. And somebody said something which kind of resonated. What difference does it make? We all talk about the finances, right? As to us fans, we know that Celtic aren't going to go and spend it. So whether we get 60 million for that, another 30 million for Matt O'Reilly, does not make a difference to us as fans, because whether we go into that Champions League again, they'll do the bare minimum. They'll do the bare minimum to actually improve us as a club and to improve the product that we're seeing on the pitch. So yeah, it's pointless. For us to look at it from the financial point of view as fans is pointless. And you know what? I don't think the board really, it's not that they don't care, but I don't think for them missing out on a title every now and again matters. They probably just see it as natural. That's just what happens. Bayern Munich, for example, they might not win it this season. Or, you know, big teams, they might not win it. They see it like that. Oh, it's part of the process. Sometimes we'll win it, sometimes we won't. Obviously, we as fans, we can accept it. We've all said it. I can accept losing a title when it's based on the fact that we're up against good opposition and, you know, it's been nip and tuck and we've just missed out or whatever. Things can happen, of course. But when you've got that healthy a lead and when it's pretty much been all self-inflicted and we've been seeing it coming from October, November, December, and they've still done nothing to rectify it, that's when it really frustrates us fans. And that's why, yeah, people will call it entitled. Absolutely not. We've seen this coming. We've called it. We've said it. And the powers that be have not done enough they've slept at the wheel, as the famous quote was doing the rounds years ago. And then, yeah, we'll probably see Desmond pop up in summer trying to do something to save it again. Why when it's too late?
Well, the thing with regards to the way the board think about the club compared to the way we think about the club, I think it's a massive point, because I've heard about, some fans saying starve them the cash, and it isn't as easy as that. And in actual fact, what they would do, because they're very, very good accountants and businessmen, they would be able to work it. They would still work the bottom line, Acsom, if a number of unhappy fans were to do that. They would still be a successfully run, stable business and organisation. They would, because that's what they're good at, right? Or if there's a black hole because X, Y, and Z aren't going to buy season tickets or merchandise, they'll just sell a player. They'll sell one of your star players. So I don't see that as a quick fix. I've heard a lot of people thinking that that's the button, that's the only button we've got. You push that and then you can force change. I don't agree with that, because I think the club have always got this absolutely sewn up. They are in possession of all the aces. If you don't give your season ticket money to them, they'll sell one of your star players. That's always going to be the way with Celtic. I don't think that's the change that needs to happen. I think it's more of a long-term situation where voices on the board from the fans, absolutely, I'm all for that, because they don't get it. They don't get it. It wasn't that long ago the chairman was talking about European football as if it was a fantasy concept. It was so far removed from his thoughts. There's no way. We're just good to be there. Absolutely not. You can do things so much better. And if you have had the dominance, the period of dominance that we have had, Jerry, you've got to be able not only to have that firm financial footing for a rainy day, because the rainy day is just round the corner, but you can also run a successful football side. What bothers me with the football department, Jerry, is we can't even deal with a change in management. Because you look at it, right? Every time there's a change in management, it's catastrophic. Ange left, we can't handle it. You chuck money at the most expensive manager we've ever had in the history of the football club, and we can't handle the change in management. That's because we've got a football department which is completely dysfunctional. The football manager doesn't talk to the head of recruitment. So the head of recruitment's identifying players that the football manager has to use, but there's no joined up thinking there. I think
that's quite unfair. That's quite unfair to the board, because they did manage to successfully sign Neil Lennon in a shower one day. So
it goes back to even that. It goes back to that. I remember the walk from the cup final to the Burnside where I parked my car, and there was a traffic ticket on the vehicle, by the way. I remember that. There was some pre-match entertainment in the Burnside. And I remember going back and hearing the news at that point. And by the way, it's no hindsight. Go back, because Kevin and I spoke about it on a very early edition of A Celtic State of Mind. But it was the manner in which it happened as well. Almost like, you can just, right, who applied for the job? Who else?
It's not that it's like Neil Lennon. It's like you say, it's the manner they did it. It wasn't like it's because it was Neil. It was like in a shower.
What was the process?
Didn't Lowell say that he didn't even look at the applications? I'm sure that's what he said. So like you said, it even goes back to then.
As long as it wasn't, I didn't look at Neil Lennon's application in the shower.
There's a drawer somewhere at Celtic Park with applications in it, But it's the process, and it's the I know best attitude. And these fans, you are a bunch of ruffians. What do you know? And that is the kind of impression I get from the club. And I think you're right, Acsom. There was a period of time where it felt as though there was a harmony between fans and club for a spell there. But these things, and by the way, anybody outside the bubble will look at us go, you've only drawn with Kilmarnock, guys, and you want to take over the club. No, it's much deeper than that. And it's over a period of years, and loads of managers have suffered their fate because of it. It's the reason Brendan Rodgers left first time round. He'd been presented with players that were not good enough. They didn't fit the style of play or the levels that he wanted. Had it not been for Carter Vickers' injury, 3 of our summer signings would have been out on loan right now. A third of them would have been out on loan. That shows you how bad that recruitment window was. But in terms of the nepotism, Jerry, I just want people to be the best at what they do. If I'm running a football club, I want the best head of recruitment. I want the best head of academy. I want the best managers managing my B team. And I want it all to be joined up. We need to look at the football department again, don't we?
Yeah, I know we're a family club, but that doesn't mean you need to hire every single person in your family and give them the best jobs. It's nuts, but something's got to change. Like you said, I think there might be a sacrificial lamb to the slaughter when it comes to LO, but who knows? Do you know what I'm holding on to? Right, that Brendan did say he was pushing for these big players, and they did want to come, but their clubs wouldn't let them go in the summer. Now, I know that's next season, but it's the fact that have they been really trying? Have they been trying to throw the money at it? I'm thinking no, but there's a slight chance, guys, a slight chance that they might have tried to spend the money in January. I'm keeping a straight face here, by the way. They might have tried to spend the money in January and just couldn't. There could be a turn. Look at this, right? It's not the way we want it all the time, but last day of the season, last minute goal to win the league. When's the last time we've had that kind of euphoria? It's been too easy for us. So I just think we're getting this to add a wee bit of excitement. It's going to change around. We are going to win the league. We're going to win the cup. That's my look on it.
I hope I can bookmark this edition and come back to it with a smile on my face. Jerry, I'm just going to go back to the summer. And you get snippets here and there. Acsom, you speak like every single Celtic fan, anybody linked with the club, anything. I'm a sponge to information they might have on how we do our business.
Yeah.
And the name Daniel Podence was flying about in the summer. And you look at that and you think, right, we could bring in one winger. We could bring in one winger here. And he's 27. He's going to cost us a lot more than the 4 wingers that we brought in. But let's be honest, there's no guarantees in life. There's certainly no guarantees in football, Acsom. Wouldn't that have been a better option than buying in 4, where it's really just throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping that one of them hits the bullseye?
There was 2 wingers that we were seriously interested in. He was one of them, and the other was Keito Nakamura he was at Lask Linsk, and he went to Reims, I think, in France for around 12 million. I watched him play for Japan in the Asia Cup, and really good player again. 100% would come straight into our team and automatically improve it. Likewise, Podence. So 2 players that I know that we were definitely looking at. So that just shows you that if we're looking at that caliber of player, how can it go from that to what we've ended up with? Where's the middle ground? Or not even middle ground, but if that's the level of what we felt we can get to try and improve it, surely we should keep on trying at that level. But it's gone from that to then Palma and Kuhn. And that to me just shows no joined up thinking, no strategy in terms of recruitment of like you have your 2 or 3 targets and then you move down. But we've just gone scattergun. Like you say, it's probably, again, agency recommended or stuff like that. It's not actual proper planning, proper processes to see what we can do with recruitment. We've spoke about recruitment for months now, how it's been a shambles. The question I've got here as well, like you say, do we think Rodgers will be here in summer? If we say we don't win the league, I don't think he'll be here. But even if we win the league, I don't think I don't know if he's been, like I said, we spoke about it before. Has he been hoodwinked himself in terms of what he thought he was going to get when he was coming back this time round? Because looking at that squad, surely he wouldn't have signed up for that if he thought this is what the caliber of the squad is going to be. So who knows? Like you said, that's for the summer. But at this stage, we just need to make sure and try and get this title won. We spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? I think it was after, I can't remember, the Aberdeen game. We all said we'll have give a percentage of where we feel we're at in terms of the title race. And it feels like every second week it's reducing. We're 2 points behind. We've got 2 fixtures against them, and I know people keep clinging on to that we've still got to play them. I don't fancy us going to Ibrox at the moment with this squad, with this team. I don't think we've got the mental. I think we're fragile. Something really needs to change to give us that belief, and that we kept on looking at wee different chances for turning points, but it's just not been there. We've not had one really convincing statement victory that might think, you know what, they could do this. So like I said, we probably go into next week's game maybe 5 behind. Who knows? Hearts might do us a favour, but I just hate now having to look at their games looking for favours. That shouldn't be the case. So we'll see where we're at.
Absolutely, it was in our hands. I say, we let it slip through our fingers. We've got James Coughlin. Good to see you on the old Twitter. Celtic and Leicester supporter. Same scenario playing out with Rodgers last season with Leicester. I always find it interesting talking to Leicester fans, actually. about how Rodgers' tenure started off pretty well, but his success tapered off, excuses, blame culture, that kind of thing. So it's great to hear from you, James. Keep the comments coming in. Palmer smiling when he messes up drives me crazy. It takes me back to a Yeti against Ross County. Remember a Yeti missed a sitter? Remember that? Yeah. And he turned around with a smile. And I'm looking at that going, am I being too harsh? Is that a nervous thing? But it really does my head in as well, I've got to be honest with you. Robin M, post-match, Brendan sounded like a man defeated. That worries me. Who thinks the title was lost? Zero self-belief. Ridiculizer, I'm bringing this up. How could you run through walls for a man who will run away and jump ship when it suits him? I would say, how can you run through walls for a man who's already written you off as a new signing? I mean, imagine now we need to go to one of the centre halves and say, by the way, we need you to do a job now between now and the end of the season. That's going to be tough. James A. Forrest, apparently we were looking to offload him. What if we need to call upon Forrest at some point to do a job for us? It's going to be tough, isn't it, Acsom?
Yeah, he's not been in the picture. He's not featured. I can't remember the last time he even came on as a sub. So, again, is it maybe better having players like that in now? Just as many players that have been there and won titles before, just for the mentality, because I can't see him offering any less. And I've been not a critic of Forrest per se, but just in terms of whether I see him contributing this season. But I'm watching Maeda play the other day, and honestly, I was like, what is he offering? What is he actually offering at the moment? So I wouldn't mind the likes of James Fox. Like, we're at that stage now, it's desperation. We need to try something different. We mentioned Rocco Vata earlier. Genuinely, why not? Why not? You know, you may really, but we've got to try. His press conference again this week. Like, what are we expecting from Rodgers? Because he's tried everything. He's tried everything, but he can't come out with he can't come out with the same kind of speech he was coming out with last week now about, this, narrative that people are saying. It's there in plain white, black and white for us all to see. And I got the reasoning behind why he was maybe doing that, in the last couple of weeks. He can't do that again. And you seen he was maybe putting it on the players a wee bit at the weekend. He did say, like, that's not good enough. And he felt for the fans that travel across the country to come and see them. So you just don't know what tone we're going to get, and that's been part of it as well. He's been very inconsistent in his messaging and his tone all season, which then mirrors the performances on the pitch.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right, because again, we think, oh, that's great, I love the bullish Brendan, that's brilliant, but there's only so much times you can come out and say there isn't an issue behind the scenes. It's all made up stuff from the newspapers. Andrew Martin probably gives us what he thinks is the strongest defence. Johnston, Carter Vickers, Nawrocki and Taylor. There's a lot of people now looking at that central defensive partnership and wondering if it's the correct mix. Danielle, always a pleasure for your input. Even when things were going our way with Angie's second season, we should have been looking at a director of football to continue Angie's good work. I totally agree with that. And that's what frustrates me, because we wait until something's broken rather than being proactive. We're always reactive with these situations. It's like the youth academy that we talk about time and time again. We should have been looking at that big time when we were winning 9 leagues in a row, and we should have been creating a conveyor belt of young talents to come through. We never bothered doing it. We just lapped up league win after league win after league win, and every now and again a youth player came through, but it was not the rule. It was actually something of an anomaly. Thanks everybody for getting in touch, by the way, because 1800 live on a Monday, there's a lot of unhappiness, frustration, absolutely get it, and we will be here for every single moment of this campaign, regardless of how it goes. Check us out at 6 o'clock tonight. I got a chance to speak to a couple of Celtic fans outside the stadium. That will be part of the show about 6 o'clock, as I say. Last year, there was an issue with YouTube. I couldn't upload it in time. It probably landed at about midnight. But, keep bringing in the views. Subscribe to the channel. Give us a big thumbs up. And if you still fancy coming to live events and being part of the Acsom community, all the ticket details are underneath this video. Hopefully, by the time they come round, we'll be in better shape. All that's left for me to say is thank you once again to Jerry Taylor and Nassim Rabbani for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.